And what you saw here, ladies and gentlemen, is why I don't use After Effects anymore. After Effects has been the go-to motion tool for designers for years, but it's got a steep learning curve, it doesn't integrate with Figma, and you have to leave Figma. So, by the end of this video, you'll know why I never use Adobe After Effects for motion work.
What? Bro, what are you talking about, man?
And why Figma has taken its place in my workflow. Psst, it's not just for UI animations. Now, today we'll cover two things. One, why Figma is your best friend as a UI designer when it comes to motion. And two, how you can use it to create things like this and this. So let's jump into Figma and start animating so that you can see the power yourself. Alright, so we're in Figma. Before we do anything, if you haven't already subscribed, I really appreciate it. Now, Smart Animate. If you don't know about the concept, I have a video on it. I suggest you pause this video and check that video out and then get back here. So, in its simplest form, Smart Animate is animations based on the difference in a layer, usually between frames, that enables transitions, like this one. So I'm hovering this element, it increases in size, it changes its color, and this is a very simple use of Smart Animate. But this is the basic concept. So with that in mind, if we jump over to the first animation I'm going to show you here, a hero intro animation. Let's play it. So you can see a bunch of stuff happening here. We have a reveal, we have a load, and we have the background appearing, text, the nav bar, and then the phone and this button here. And this is a super simple animation to create. So we're gonna dissect this animation and look at how it was actually created. So let's jump back in here. Here we have the frames used for this animation. So it is just 7 frames that created that whole animation you just saw. Let's look at the first frame. What do we have here? We have a block that is hiding this text. So that's the first reveal we saw. We have the loader text, of course, behind it. And we have the image that currently is set to 0 opacity here. And for this one, we wouldn't even need the image because the image doesn't appear until here. And usually you just need the element you're gonna make a transition with or animate somehow in the frame before, so just the previous frame. I'll show you what this means in just a bit. So we could even remove the image from here because the only thing happening here is this reveal. So now if we go to the next frame, this block here is no longer hiding the text. The text itself is going from decreased opacity to 100% opacity, and the text element that I'm using is a clipped frame. So you can see here, we have an auto layout with numbers that we're just repositioning. That's all that happens with this one. So it goes from being 01 to 99, like that. And this frame, this outer frame here, is clipping the content. So from here, we go from 0.1% to 99. So the only thing happening here is we're changing the position of this block of text or this auto layout of text elements. So this is actually the first part where we need to include the image in the animation. So here, the image is put outside of the frame. This frame is clipping the content, and it's gonna come from the bottom up and cover the screen. This text here is gonna also change position. So if we look here, change its position, it goes up, and we fade it out to 0% opacity. Then the next step is we have our nav. So this is the first frame where we introduce the nav bar. And here is the second frame, that's where we reveal it. So it starts in the top above the frame, then we take it down here and show it. So that's that part of the animation. The next part is where we show the text. So that means that the text must be present in the previous frame, and it is. but it doesn't have any opacity. And it's put a bit further down in the frame so that it rises and goes back to 100% opacity to make this nice transition. So that's what happens between these frames. Then we have this step where we show the phone. So that's the last thing that happens, which means that the phone must be present in this frame. So you can see that it's beneath the frame here. And then the arrow is also beneath. And it's a bit further down so that the phone appears a bit quicker and the arrow comes afterwards. So if we play it again, the reveal, the number scrolling, the image floating up, nav coming down, bold text coming up, and then at last we have the phone and the button. So that's an intro animation that is super easy and super quick to create with Smart Animate. Next thing I want to show you is that you can create anything. So the previous one was kind of a UI animation. Now your creativity is really what is going to be the boundary here. So let's look at this animation. A Twitter ad. Let's play it. Super high tempo and a totally different kind of animation. This is a social media ad. And you can create this in Figma as well. So let's break it down. Now, the first frame, what happens here? This is actually a looping animation. So the last frame here needs to connect back to the first frame. So that's why you see this little circle here, because we're using that in the last frame. We'll get to that. Okay, so what happens in the first frame? We have the text. Also, this text is used in the last frame. That's why we need it in the first frame. Then we have the images that are also used in the last frame. That's why we need them here. And then we have the first text that appears from the left. So this text is what you see here. We have it outside of the frame to the left so that it slides in. That's the first thing. Then we have this real text appearing, which is a group of 3 text layers. In this frame, we're using an opacity to reveal them. So 0% opacity goes to 100%. Then we separate them. So since we have 3 text layers here, you can see that they're just stacked on top of each other. In this frame, we separate them into an animation. And then for the next step, we're going to decrease the size. So we squeeze them together. So I use the K tool to decrease the size of them. So you can see if I click K, I can decrease the size like this. So we decrease the size. That's the only thing happening here. Then for this frame, I increase the size again and tilt. So I rotate the text a bit. And then we have this text, fashion, appearing, just a regular kind of opacity transition animation. You can see that it's put a bit further down in the frame. So it rises and goes to 100% opacity here. And then we change the position of fashion to the left. We change the background color. It's that simple. This element here, as you can see, which is just an auto layout of 3 images, also appears here in our previous frame. And it's put in the bottom. So outside of the screen, you can't see it. It slides up. The text, like I said, slides to the left. Then here, we're just changing the text. Since we're just changing the text like this, the animation is just going to be like a fade in, fade out animation. So it's nothing fancy. We could like change the position of the text so this slides up and we have this text coming from the bottom. But then we would need separate text fields. So I made it a bit simpler here. So I'm just changing the text. For each of these frames, I just changed the position of these images or the auto layout that contains them. So here, this is centered. Here, this one is centered. And for this one is centered. And this is the same as well, just changing the background color, changing the text. Then, as the last step, I've added a little circle here, a little ellipse that increases in size and kind of makes everything white, which then brings us back to the first part where the white circle kind of decreases in size, and yeah, it just takes us back to the original state. So let's play it once more and see. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is why I never use Adobe After Effects for animation work anymore. Now, if you're interested in advanced animations, I have tutorials on that here, so check them out. Until the next one though, have a great life. We'll talk soon. Ciao.